Hi. I'm in a different setting today because the lighting in my room is absolutely fucking atrocious right now. I was looking washed out. I didn't like that. So we are here in a different setting today. Hopefully it's not too echoey because I am filming in a bigger part of the house. As you can see, there's really high ceilings. So I can hear myself echoing, but I have a mic on, so hopefully it's not too bad. But the time has come. We are here and I'm going to talk about my favorite books from 2025. I didn't want to do this video right away because I wanted to sit with my thoughts and, feel out what books I was still thinking about and books that I couldn't get off my mind. Because to me, at the end of the year, when I've read over 200 books, whatever ones are still books that I think about, characters that still stick with me, plots and stories that I can't let go of, those are the ones that to me are the favorites of the year. That doesn't necessarily mean that these were all 5 stars, okay? To me, my favorites are just ones that stood out to me, that meant the most to me. That's why I am not labeling this video as the best books I read in 2025 because for argument's sake, I could just give you a list of my 5-star reads, but I wanted to highlight all of the books that made an impact on me and ones that changed my life. Now, in my head, I am a minimalist, but true to my core, I'm for sure a maximalist, without a doubt. It was so hard for me to narrow down this list, honestly, and even with me narrowing it down, I still have a ton of books to talk about. I felt bad leaving books out, and you guys know me, I can yap all day long. I have my favorite books that we're gonna go through, and then I have some other categories of books that I wanna touch upon because I didn't want it all just to be like my favorites. I wanted to do other categories so that it was something different, but for the most part, these are all my favorite books of 2025. I'm going in chronological order that I read these books in. The first favorite of 2025 is a book that you've probably seen everywhere. I think this has been on every single booktuber's favorites video of 2025, at least of all the people that I've watched, for good reason. Honestly, I actually got an arc of this book, and genuinely, I can't even believe I got an arc of this book. I was gagged when I saw the approval from NetGalley that I got this arc, but this was, I want to say, one of the first books I read in 2025, and to this day, until the end of 2025, a year later now in 2026, I still think about this book, and that is My Friends by Frederick Bachman. Again, I know you've probably seen this book everywhere, so I'm not going to go into too much detail about what it is because you've probably seen it everywhere. Also, I'm not someone that gives great summaries. I'm going to work on that this year, but since we're still in 2025 mode, I'm not going to give deep summaries for all these. I'm just going to give you my thoughts and opinions. This book is exactly what everyone is saying it is. It is phenomenal. Frederick Bachman's writing is unlike any other. He is able to create such beautiful stories with lovable characters. A story that is very emotional and will pull at your heartstrings, but at the end has so much optimism and it ends on a very hopeful note. There's always a silver lining despite all of the stormy clouds that loom in this story. I think the title speaks for itself. This is a beautiful book about friendship, about platonic love, the love of art, and how art and friendships shape people. Absolutely phenomenal. Like I said, I cannot stop thinking about this book. I actually want to reread and annotate because I had a ton of annotations in my arc that I need to transfer over, but I nearly highlighted every single line in this book. Some of the best lines that I've ever read, lines that took my breath away. Definitely a top favorite for 2025, My Friends by Frederick Bachman. Okay, the next favorite of 2025 is in fact the book that, if you put a gun to my head, would be the book that I would choose to represent my number 1 of 2025, and that's Immaculate Conception by Ling Huang. I've literally talked about this book and My Friends multiple times, and I think people are sick of me talking about it, but you guys, this book changed my fucking life. Really hard to categorize this. In the Goodreads Choice Awards, they put this book under horror, and this is not a horror book whatsoever. There are body horror elements to it. This is definitely, to me, more literary speculative fiction with some body horror. Like I said, there's also a thriller aspect in it, a future sort of dystopian world. Not dystopian, there's just a lot of technological advancements that happen in this world that shape society. And I've said this before, I sound like a broken record, but this book reads like an episode of Black Mirror. Truly, it will reflect the horrors of the advancements in AI and how that is going to eventually shape the way humans think and feel. And it also interweaves a story about a very codependent friendship that forms at an art school. It also explores the relationship between art and technology and how they can somehow blend together. There's just so much in this book. It's really hard to explain everything that goes on, but it's stunning. The writing, incredible. The character development, the character work in this book, unlike any other. The plot twists, there were twists and turns I was not expecting. I was gagged at what happened. Not a long book, babe, but packs a punch. This is an author you guys need to get into. She wrote Natural Beauty, which I know a lot of people are now discovering or starting to pick up. And this, as her sophomore novel, phenomenal. Her writing just gets better and better, and I can't wait to read more of her books. Ling Huang is becoming one of my favorite authors of all time. I've loved both of her books so far, but this one, perfection. Okay, let's get into it. The next favorite of 2025, this is it, you guys. This is it. The Spear Cuts Through Water by Simon Jimenez, another Filipino author. This standalone fantasy, I don't even want to explain to you what it's about because I think you need to go in blind and just know that you are going to be in for a journey. You're going to be in for a ride. This book was an experience. It wasn't a book, it was an experience, okay? And also, this is just a masterclass in storytelling, the way that this author weaves this beautiful, historic, fantastical, magical story through not just first person, but also second person and third person. You are following the past, the present, the future, these two characters that are going on a quest. It also touches upon oral tradition. I see so much of my culture blended into this book. It does have some Filipino cultural influences in it. I've said this before about this book, but it is a book that to me showcases just how creative and imaginative authors can still be with fantasy. In the past couple of years, I've been reading a lot of fantasy that feels like it's one-dimensional and it's very cookie cutter. And this book is so unique, it's so out of the box. It's truly unlike anything that I've ever read, and I think people need to read it at least once in their life. So if there's one book that you take away from this favorites video, let it be this one, The Spear Cuts Through Water. Okay. You guys know I love romance, so the next favorite is my favorite romance of 2025. I had a lot. It was a fight to the death for these romance books for me to pick which one was my favorite. But ultimately, there is one that rises above the rest. Okay. That was dramatic. Can't Get Enough by Kennedy Ryan. Yes, girl. This book, bitch, I'm not kidding you. I left 2025 with a book husband and his name is Maverick fucking Bell. All right? Yeah. This is the third book in, what is it? Is it the Skyland series? The reason why I don't know the name of the series is because I didn't even read the second book. I only read the first book, and that was years ago. I was waiting for this character's story because I loved her in the first book, and I knew she was the character I wanted to wait for because she's child-free by choice. She loves her career, loves her life, loves her independence, and we love to fucking see it. I am Hendrix. Hendrix is me, okay? And this is her romance with Maverick Bell, babe. Successful, wealthy, millionaire, worships the ground she walks on. The things that this man did for her. Ooh, this man is fine. This man is fine, okay? And things got heated. Things got heated in this. Yes, yeah. With any Kennedy Ryan book, you're going to get that emotional depth in the book. These two go through a lot, both individually and together, and then they still work things out and they still choose each other in the end. Bitch. This book was so good. Arguably one of my favorite romances of all time. Not just of 2025, of all time. That's how good this was. If you need a romance to read, look no further, babe. Kennedy Ryan, Can't Get Enough. Okay, the next favorite that I have of 2025. Disappoint Me by Nicola Dinan. This book is about a biracial trans woman navigating life, dating, all of the things, self-identity, self-discovery. And dating in your 20s is genuinely just a humiliation ritual. Like, it's just embarrassing all around. So she goes through all of that, right? And then you sort of also follow the backstory and the history of the guy that she's currently seeing and how his past comes to the forefront of their relationship. And a lot of trauma that I wasn't expecting, a lot of drama that I wasn't expecting either. I still think about this character to this day. I love her. I also loved this author's writing. I think this author captured so many little moments in dating and just being uncomfortable in your own skin in your 20s and not knowing what the fuck is going on. And this author captures those feelings and moments that you don't really know how to explain, but they put it into words in this book perfectly. And then also the intersectionality of, you know, our main character being trans and also biracial. There are a lot of layers to this book that I loved unwrapping and unraveling. This was the first book I read from this author, but they have a debut novel called Bellies, and I need to read that book. But I honestly wish I could wipe my memory of reading this book and read it all over again and just experience that all over again. This was such a great book. I want to read you a quote that stood out to me from this book. This is also a world where people, often women, are doomed to spend much of their lives forgiving the errors of others and suffering for the sake of other people's growth. Sometimes there's nothing to do but leave, and sometimes there's nothing to do but forgive. Oh, and then this next quote is just, it's everything. You can fall in love with an outline. You can even make a home with one. But there will come a time where you can't deny the bones in their flesh. A person is no fewer than two things. Hang that quote in the fucking Louvre. Incredible writing, truly. Okay, next is an unexpected favorite. I got the arc of it in mid 2025. I want to say maybe the end of June, beginning of July. Honestly, the premise sounded interesting, which is why I requested it. I had no idea that it was going to end up being one of my favorite books of 2025. Genuinely, no clue that it would, but it took my breath away. It knocked my fucking socks off, you guys. And that book is Slanting Towards the Sea by Lydia Hilge. It reminded me of that sort of romantic angst and yearning in Cleopatra and Frankenstein by Coco Mellers. This takes place in Croatia. And by the way, the setting of Croatia in this, beautiful. I said this in my review, but it felt like a love letter to Croatia, just the way that the author described the country, the setting, the streets, the trees. I honestly, after reading this, I was like, I need to book a trip to Croatia immediately. But in here you follow Ivana, and she is divorced, but she's still really good friends with her ex-husband and his new wife. Like they have a really good friendship. She's actually still in love with her ex-husband. And then a new man comes into her life, and it sets off a chain of events that honestly take you on a journey, because like I said, there's a lot of yearning, if you know what I mean, because she's still in love with her ex-husband. There's a lot of heart and depth in this book that I was not expecting. I didn't realize that it was going to be as emotional as it was, but this did make me tear up a few times because, you know, these two, the reason why they got divorced is something that I think a lot of people can relate. It wasn't because they fell out of love with each other, but at the end of the day, love is also not enough to keep people together. So that is really, I think, the heart of what these two were going through. And, you know, that is such a hard thing to grapple with. I didn't always agree with her decisions, with her actions, but I couldn't deny that she was such a dynamic character to follow, such a fascinating character to be in the mind of. In terms of fucking yearning, you guys, let me read you some quotes. It's these small moments of recognition, a specific inflection of his voice, a particular look on his face, a small gesture no one else might notice that I live for. Why I swirl in his orbit, even at the cost of watching him make a life with someone else. I can't. It seems to me we've always been and will always be two islands bathing in the same sea with our backs to each other. Him facing the sun, me facing the moon. Both of us resenting the light the other got. But one of those lights has gone out already, and now the other is fading too. I guess where it leaves us then is in the dark. This book really took my emotions into overdrive, and the ending was an open ending in a way that left you completely empty and hollow. I was left feeling like that's it. That's all the author is gonna give me. That's all I'm gonna say. But I loved this, and this is definitely not the last I will read from this author. Definitely an unexpected surprise, but another favorite of 2025, Slanting Towards the Sea. Okay, the next favorite I also have seen a lot of people talk about, not nearly enough, but I have seen some people list it as their favorites of 2025. But that is Rejection by Toni Tulatimut. And this is a fantastic short story collection about people getting rejected and grappling with that in today's society in very different ways. Sometimes not the best way, most times in very toxic ways. I'm just going to read you the summary because I think it highlights everything. It's so hard to put into words what this book exactly entails because, again, it's a short story collection. So each story is truly its own narrative. Each story could have been its own book. The summary is an electrifying novel in stories that follows a cast of... Who is calling the landline? An electrifying novel in stories that follows a cast of intricately linked characters as rejection throws their lives and relationships into chaos. All stories and characters are somehow connected in some way, and they reveal the ways our delusions can warp our desire for connection. What I said was, the characters are all socially awkward. They're navigating life, trying to keep up with everyone else. They are lonely. They can be unlikable, pathetic even, yet very compelling. And the thing is too, you see parts of yourself, pieces of yourself in each character. You may not see all of yourself in that character, but you will see moments or reactions in them that you're like, oh, been there, done that. Yeah. The writing was very witty and there's a lot of dark comedy in this. Some of it feels very satire, but it really hits the nail on a lot of topics that are relevant in this world today, especially with social media. That plays a big part in these characters' stories. But it'll definitely make you think about your reaction to things and your reactions to what people say and do. Yeah, I thought this was absolutely brilliant. The writing, amazing, really compelling writing. I could not stop reading. I wanted to know just how toxic and dark it could get, like just how unbearable these characters could be. I don't know, like I was just addicted to reading this, and it's not a very long book. Definitely another favorite of mine for 2025, Rejection. The next book is another book that I was not expecting to love as much as I did. This is a book I actually don't really hear anyone talk about, and I think more people need to. And that book is Lion by Sonia Walger. Now, this is an autobiographical fiction novel by Sonia about her tumultuous relationship with her father, who has been in and out of her life since she was a kid. When she's a child, her dad is described to be very larger than life. He seems to be this very adventurous guy that's skydiving and traveling the world, and he's a race car driver and all these things, but he's also a cocaine addict and an ex-con, and he cannot commit to a job or a person or a family for the life of him. She says it's hard to compete with adrenaline when you're a child. And that's definitely what this book is about, is her father's need to find the next best thing, never staying put in one place and always wanting to be part of something bigger and better. And that was never really life with her and her mom. So he goes off and he starts another family. Regardless of how he tries to build roots, he never really stays in one place, and he's just a mess. But throughout that, Sonia is still wanting to be part of his life. She still admires her father. She still wants his love. She still wants to be accepted by him. She still wants to be enough for him. And as she grows older, you see in her early adulthood, she realizes that, oh, I'm not the problem. He is. I definitely saw a lot of my relationship with my parents in this. And to me, that's really what I got out of this book. And I also really enjoy the author's writing, the way that she's able to be very vulnerable about certain things in her life that she's gone through with her dad. Like, she even admits that despite her mom being the rock, the foundation for her, holding it down, raising her as a single mom, while her dad is out gallivanting all around the world, she acknowledges that she loves her mom and is grateful for that, but she still can't help but want her dad's love and her dad's affection and attention. You know, that willingness to be open about that in this book, and the way that she writes about it it's just so moving, and I really enjoyed it. After all these years without him, I do not know how to live with him. I know how to miss him. I do not know how to tolerate him. I want him another continent away where I can manage the neglect. Being vulnerable like that and admitting those things and then publishing it in a book like this, girl, that's crazy. That takes such bravery and courage that I grew a lot of respect for this author. Also, I believe she's an actress too. And I didn't know this when I made my anticipated reads of 2026, but she's coming out with a book this year. She's coming out with a new fiction novel, and I'm pissed that I didn't know about it until literally a couple days ago. Otherwise, I would have added it to my fucking list. But love this book. A favorite of 2025. Okay. The next favorite, one of my favorite authors of all time, Moderation by Elaine Castillo. Another Filipino-American author. I've met Elaine before and she is such an incredible person. She is one of the most brilliant people I have ever met in my life. I saw her give a speech at the beginning of the Filipino Book Festival that I went to in 2024. And she's bright and intelligent, and she's on a completely different planet than I am, honestly. Like, the way that her brain thinks, chef's kiss. This book follows a Filipino American woman, first generation to immigrant parents. She is the eldest daughter. This book was written for me because I am all of those things. And yeah, Girly, who's the main character, I related to her on every single level, literally. She's a content moderator. Content moderators, the things that she's seen online that people post, horrifying. I think people need to do psych evals to be able to go online and post and interact with people, because some of the things that people are posting online publicly, shamelessly, vile, absolutely disgusting. And she has to go through and sift through all that content and delete what's not appropriate, which, spoiler alert, it's 99% of the things that she sees. She's so good at her job that then a new AI virtual reality company comes and hires her to be one of the first content moderators for this new virtual reality game or virtual reality space that this company is creating. And it's where she will be moderating content in real time in that virtual reality space. Like, as it's happening, she's actively going in and erasing that content. She tries to figure out the meaning of everything. What is the point of all of this? She unpacks a lot of her childhood and generational trauma that she's experienced, trying to stay afloat with her job, trying to keep her family appeased. I felt so close to this character because she mirrored a lot of what's happened in my life and like the things that I feel as an eldest daughter of immigrant parents. Like, I genuinely, there were moments in this that I had to put the book down because I was like, okay, that feels way too real. That feel like, did she pluck this from my memories and put it into a book? Like, how did she know that I've been through that? Personally, for me, this was probably the book out of 2025 that I felt represented who I am and my experiences the most. I felt the closest to a character that I've ever felt when I read Girly. Also, a lot of talk about what's going on in society with technology advancements, AI. Girly falls in love. Like, it's such a fantastic story, and I think everyone should read this. So that is Moderation. Oh, I also forgot to mention that I listened to this while I read the book, and Elaine actually narrates the audiobook. So if you are going to read it, I highly suggest the audiobook because she narrates it fantastically. Oh my God. Okay, the next book, guys, heavy. They're There by Tommy Orange. This is one of the books that I wanted to read in my lifetime, and I'm so glad that I read it in 2025 because it was phenomenal. You follow 12 different characters whose stories all intertwine. They're all part of the indigenous community here in the Bay Area, and you follow certain moments and scenes in their lives that are leading up to the big Oakland powwow. And when we get to that powwow, what happens? Gagged. Absolutely gagged. Traumatizing for sure, but just seeing the way that these characters' lives were sort of building up and then kind of falling apart towards the end, beautiful. Also, this was the first book that I read where we're following indigenous characters that aren't on a reservation. It was in an urban setting, and I loved that. This author's writing was really great, really gripping. These characters felt so raw and real, and you could feel how heavy all of the emotions and the anger and pain that they were carrying. You felt it so viscerally in this book. Highly recommend. This is such a fantastic book, and I'm glad I read it in 2025. A favorite of the year, They're There. Okay, the last favorite that I'm going to mention before we get into the different categories. Ooh, girl. The Scholar and the Last Fairy Door by H.G. Perry. My God, I have not shut up talking about this book, but truly one of the best historical fantasy books that I've read that have to do with fae. I am just sick and tired of all of the fae books out there. I think because they're mostly romantasy, and I just haven't read a book with fae where it was just a regular fantasy book in a really long time. And it was so nice to finally get a book where the fae are just fae. They're like, no one is an 8-foot, 20-foot wingspan shadow daddy. The Fae were just Fae in this book. Do you know what I mean? Like, they were just who they were. We really went back to the roots of who the Fae actually are in this book. And they're not good people, okay? They are not shadow daddies. They are terrifying and manipulative creatures, you know? And you follow our main character who goes to a magical school because she wants to break a fairy curse that's been put upon her brother. There's a war going on. At this university that she goes to, only people with magical abilities are able to go. And those with magical abilities come from magical families. So she learns how to do magic because of a mentor and earns her way into the school. And it was low-key giving dark academia. Yes, it was. And there were some messy characters that she finds a found family with. And I loved that aspect because it was, okay, hear me out, not exactly, but it was giving low-key Secret History vibes with the dynamics that these characters had. Okay, I'm not saying exactly that, but it was giving very reminiscent of that, okay? And I love that aspect of it. The friendships were my favorite part. I loved our character. She very headstrong, very confident. She really fought for her place and made a name for herself. There were some twists and turns I was not expecting in this. And honestly, the ending, like, I was a little bit sad for one of the characters' stories, the way that it ended. The character development was spot on. This was historical fantasy, not romantasy at all. I love that. Thank you. And it's a standalone. Bring back fantasy standalones, please. Like, I'm sick and tired of having to stick to a fucking 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 book series. Bring back the fantasy standalone, okay? I love that everything that I got out of this book was done in one go. Thank you. Thank you, H.G. Perry. Thank you. Phenomenal fantasy standalone book that I read this year. Absolutely loved it. And this will not be the last book that I read from this author, The Scholar in the Last Fairy Door. Let's talk about some books that made me cry. There weren't that many, but in 2025, there were only a few books that made me truly shed tears. Truly, I couldn't hold them back. So let's talk about them. The first one is not actually a book, it's a play, and it won a Pulitzer Prize for drama, and that is Primary Trust by Ebony Booth. The reason why I picked up this book was because I went to Dog-Eared Books with my friends in San Francisco, and there was a blurb from one of the booksellers there, and I asked them to keep it because it's what made me want to read the book. And it says, "There are so rarely plays about kindness, and I promise you, none of them are as gorgeous as this one." And truly, that is what this play is about. You follow 38-year-old Kenneth, who lives a comfortable life of routine in suburban New York. After days spent working at a used bookstore, he whiles away his evenings knocking back Mai Tais with his best friend Bert at the local tiki bar. But when the longtime bookstore owner decides to close up shop for good, Kenneth panics at the prospect of finding a new job, a process that unearths long suppressed fears. You kind of follow Kenneth and all of these characters in this small town and how they interact and react to Kenneth, the relationships that he has with these people, and what that bookseller said about this being about kindness, strangers and people in your life showing true empathy towards you and your situation and what you have been through. That is really what made this play so emotional for me, is just seeing how kind and thoughtful and considerate and compassionate they were towards Kenneth. It was such a both heartbreaking and heartwarming play. I really enjoyed it. I'm surprised that a play this short would make me feel that way, but I highly recommend this if you are interested in reading plays. This was so fantastic. I wish I could watch this acted out on stage. I know I would sob in that theater, but I wish I could watch it because this was so good. Definitely a favorite of this year. The next book that made me cry, The Color Purple by Alice Walker. This is a classic. This is a staple. Everyone needs to read this. I was broken reading this, but also after I finished this, because this has been adapted into both a movie and a Broadway show. Iconic. It deserves to be because this story is phenomenal. But immediately after reading this, okay, I went ahead and watched Fantasia Barrino's performance of I'm Here from the movie. Sobbed my eyes out, by the way. And then right after that, watched Cynthia Erivo's Broadway stage performance of I'm Here as well. I don't know why I did that because I honestly fell asleep in the fetal position, sobbing my eyes out like a baby. Because I did that, being able to see this character's real raw emotions performed on stage and in cinema, And Fantasia and Cynthia are some of the best vocalists this generation has ever seen. I remember voting for Fantasia when she was on American Idol, okay? That was my girl. She was that bitch, all right? And holy shit, her... Anyway, but yeah, this book sobbed. A phenomenal story. I definitely think everyone should read this. This should be required reading in schools. I mean, there are some very graphic and traumatic scenes in this, but I think this should be required reading in schools. So yeah, Sobbed, The Color Purple, phenomenal book. Loved it. Favorite of 2025. Oh, I actually sobbed reading Moderation, by the way. And I sent a picture to Elaine to show her that I sobbed. Okay, so she's aware of what she did to me. Yeah. The last book that made me sob and cry in 2025, Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This shouldn't be a surprise. I know this is also another book that's been on everyone's favorite of 2025. And again, for good reason. This book was phenomenal. You're gonna give me sapphic astronauts and I'm not gonna sob my eyes out? Please. 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 She really knows how to wound you and just keep picking at that wound, keep picking at that wound, keep picking at that wound until you're left raw. Towards the end of this, I could barely read because there were so many tears in my eyes. I remember texting my friends as I was reading and I was like, guys, I can't even see the fucking pages of this book because I am sobbing, like sobbing. But such a fantastic book, really great historical fiction. I think this author writes very accessible books that everyone can read at any time. Like you don't have to have a lot of brain power, but you do need to mentally prepare and emotionally prepare because it will ruin you. If this gets adapted into a movie or a show, I actually don't even know if I would watch that because it would be too much. It would be too much. But this was incredible. Okay, so now let's move on to books that gutted me. Yeah, these aren't books that made me cry or made me sob the way the other books did. These are books that left me completely empty and books that after I'd read them, I sat and stared at a wall for about half an hour, contemplating life, contemplating death, contemplating everything in the universe, contemplating everything that I know about existence. These are those books. These are books that absolutely ripped me apart, gutted me, and left me for dead. The first book, it's a dark romance. Yeah, it's a dark romance. And that is Under Your Scars by Ariel N. Anderson. This, when I tell you, okay, I have never, ever read a dark romance that truly skinned me alive the way this did. The things that happened in this book, number one, couldn't have ever predicted. Number two, what? You have a serial killer and a stalker and a woman that falls in love with him. It's a dark romance, okay? Give me a break. The trauma in this, if you see someone reading this book out in public, it's a cry for help, okay? Because holy fucking shit. This book on Kindle, I think was like 600 or 700 pages or something like that. It's a big book. It's a thick book. Shit goes down in this book, you guys. The ending. This is really what I'm here to talk about. The ending of this book. I have never read a dark romance or a romance or any book that ended like this, because what are you talking about? And I actually don't even want to talk about this. The ending, when I tell you, I remember I had a book club meeting with my friends and I told them the whole summary of the story and then the ending. And when I tell you, every single one of their jaws was on the floor because they were like, Kaylin, there's no way. And I'm like, yes, I had to experience that. I had to go through that. I had to read this book. I had to read what happened in the end with my own two fucking eyes. Under Your Scars. That's all I'm gonna say. All right, the next book that gutted me, left me hollow, left me for dead. And this author, she's known for doing this. She's done this to me with every book that I've read from her. She has done this to me multiple times. She's a repeat offender, okay? And that is Someday by Emma Scott. This author, I have never read one of her books and not cried my eyes out or felt completely empty after. And this one especially. This is an MM romance, and you have oh my God, okay, this is a complicated. One of them is a nurse. He used to be a prostitute, turned nurse. That's already a lot right there. And he becomes a nurse for a decrepit old billionaire, CEO of this huge pharmaceutical company. He becomes his at-home nurse, but he doesn't want anyone to know that he's suffering or that he's dying. And it's his romance with that billionaire's son, who is set to inherit that company. And that CEO didn't want his son to be gay and sends him, we're gonna leave it there. Trauma, but this was Trauma with a capital Trauma. And I ate it up. Truly did. I remember I listened to the audiobook and there was one scene that I will never forget in my life, that I was cleaning out my closet and I literally dropped all the clothes that were in my hands just to stand there and be like, for 10 minutes straight while this character is going through what this character is going through. Gutted. Like a fish ready to be served up on a platter, okay? Yeah, that's what this book left me as. So yeah, that's Someday by Emma Scott. Next book that gutted me, there's only 2 left before we go into the series. What are you talking about? This is Betty by Tiffany McDaniel. One of the best books I've ever read in my life. This was phenomenal. Incredible writing, brilliant storytelling. What the characters went through, fucked up. Absolutely fucked up. I couldn't believe what I was reading. This one ruined me. I don't think I could ever reread this book. Genuinely, I don't think I could ever reread this because I went through it once. I'm not putting myself through that again. No, I am not. This is a family saga focusing on our main character, Betty, and I will only read this once in my life. But brilliant. All right, the last book that gutted me, I just talked about this in my Q4 wrap up, so I'm not gonna go into too much detail. The Reformatory by Tanana Reeve Dew. I'm gonna read Miss Tanana Reeve again because I loved this book. I love the way she told the story. And thank God that this book ended the way it did, because if not, what these characters went through, if it ended up any other way, this book would not be on this list. I'm gonna tell you that right now. This book would not be on this list if this had ended in any other way. But you follow these 2 siblings in Jim Crow South. The brother gets sent to a reformatory school for an incident that he was defending his sister in, and then you follow his older sister, Gloria. And Gloria is one of my favorite characters of all time. The things that she did to get her brother out of this reformatory, because they were doing horrific things to these kids. She's so brave, courageous, truly determined and persistent to get her brother out. I loved watching these 2 fight for their lives, truly fight for their right to live, fight for each other. And as someone who is an eldest sister to a younger brother, I would do everything that Gloria did in here to save her brother. I would do the exact same thing. What these 2 had to endure, unspeakable, honestly. Thank God for the ending. Thank God for the ending. I was worried, but thank God for the ending. Woo, that's the Reformatory. Right, should we end on a high note? I don't know if it was obvious, but it's clear that a lot of my favorite books are traumatizing, emotionally devastating books. Those are the ones that get me. What can I fucking say, okay? But now let's talk about my favorite series that I read this year. As you guys know, in the beginning of the year, I said that I wanted to focus on series and rereads in 2025, and I did finish a bunch of series that I had started. Not all of them, but I did want to highlight some of the best series that I read and found in 2025. The first being a series that has now become one of my favorite series of all time. I'm telling you, like, if you ask me my favorite series in the world, this would probably be in the top 3. That's how good this series was. And it was completely unexpected. I did not know I was going to fall in love and binge as many books in this series as I did. But when I tell you, I fell absolutely in love with these characters. Oh my God, you guys. Okay, so that is oh my God. First of all, look at these tabs. Yeah, babe, she was invested. This is 5 books in a series that I binged, okay? And that is the Veronica Speedwell series by Deanna Rayburn. This follows Veronica Speedwell, obviously. She's a lepidopterist. How the fuck do you say that? Lepidopter. She is a doctor of fucking butterflies, okay? She is a expert in butterflies, okay? That's what that is. This is London, late 1800s. Follows Veronica Speedwell and her partner Stoker. They go around and solve mysteries, but both of them are very intelligent people. Like I said, Veronica has her butterflies that she is an expert in, and Stoker is Stoker is, what do they, taxidermist, and they both are fans of history and arts and culture. I am absolutely obsessed with them. This has become my personality, genuinely. I love Veronica as an individual. She is an outlier in what societal expectations for a woman are at this time. She child-free, doesn't want any kids, not married, all right, doesn't come from a wealthy or well-known family. She travels around the world. She hooks up with guys around the world wherever she goes, pursues her career, her passions, and that all sounds like something a normal woman today would do, but back in those days, it was such a radical idea for a woman to be able to do that, and Veronica did it completely shamelessly and with such confidence, and she is truly one of my favorite characters of all time. I love her. She's also hilarious. Her banter with Stoker, perfection. This series is fantastic. It's funny. It's interesting. The mysteries are good. Like, it's addicting. Truly, it's addicting. I would say that my favorite book in this series so far is the 4th book, A Dangerous Collaboration. If you know, you know. So good. So yeah, this was such a hidden gem that I was not expecting to find in 2025. I'm glad that there are still more books in the series that I have to binge, but I kind of paused because the next book that's coming out this year is the 10th book. And I was like, okay, I'm sort of nearing the end. Like, let me slow down because I don't want to catch up and then be left waiting for years for the next book. I am still going to continue on with the series, obviously, but I definitely want to do it at a slower pace so that I don't end up having to wait. I'm glad that there were enough books for me to binge, because if I had to wait between like all of these books, I would have lost my mind. Absolutely obsessed with the Veronica Speedwell series. Another notable series that I read and finished this year was the Gentleman Bastard series by Scott Lynch. And technically, it's not a trilogy, but there's supposed to be a 4th book in the series. No one knows when it's coming out, and there hasn't been any updates or any word about it in years. So I'm considering this its own trilogy, okay? Because like, if there's nothing about any upcoming books, I'm not going to worry about it, you know? But these 3 books, oh my God, it gave very much old school fantasy, where you have 2 characters, you have their crazy hijinks and cons that they're running. This also takes place in a city and place that is very reminiscent of Venice, with the canals and the different festivals with masks and everything. Like, it was giving very much Venice to me. But you follow these 2 characters and they're just conning people, and it's such fun. And what I love the most is how unique these characters are, but how true they stay to who they are throughout the entire book. At no point in this series did I think that either of the characters in this book made decisions that were completely against who they were. No. The way they acted, the way they reacted, the way that their brains worked and thought of things and schemed, I was like, that's so on character. It's so on point and so on brand for who these characters are. And I loved that they stayed true to who they were. I love that these characters really remained who they were throughout all 3 books. And they were hilarious and they were fun to follow. Lots of twists and turns. And I love anything that has to do with a con or a scheme. I love that. And it was just a fun time. Truly, it was just a fun, fantastical time. So I love the Gentleman Bastard series, and I highly recommend it if you're looking for a very fun, old school type of fantasy series. Okay, the last 2 series I'm going to mention very briefly because they're both by the same author. I read the Mistborn trilogy by Brandon Sanderson. Brandon, how dare you? You will be answering for your crimes that you committed in that series. Yeah, but that broke me. That series broke me, but truly deserves all the hype. One of the best fantasy series I've ever read. And now I haven't finished, but I started the Stormlight Archives. I read the first 2 books towards the end of 2025. There is a part of me that's thinking, did these books need to be that long? Do they need to be thousands of pages? And there are moments where I'm reading the book and I'm like, this could have been cut. Like, do we need this? But ultimately, the story's coming together and converging into this huge plot and all of the different dynamics between the characters. Masterful work, truly. Truly. There's a reason why he is as popular as he is. The man knows how to weave together a fucking fantasy story. Yeah, those are all the series that in 2025 stood out to me and ones that became my absolute favorites. I have a feeling this is going to be a very long video. So thank you for sticking with me and letting me talk and gush about my favorite books of 2025. It was a fantastic reading year. The fact that I read over 200 books and had this many favorites to talk about says that I am doing better about the books that I'm picking up and that I'm having a better reading experience. So I'm glad that I found more books in 2025 that I loved than books that I didn't. That to me is a win. This year, I'm hoping that 2026 gives me my best reading year of all time, but 2025 was a fantastic reading year. And it's also the year that I really started posting more on YouTube. And it's been so fun being able to talk about books and having a place and a little corner where I can yap about books and creating a bookish community on here. So thank you to all of you who have subscribed. I cannot believe I have over 100 subscribers. Thank you so much for watching me and, you know, letting me into your lives in 2025. I really appreciate it. And it's been so fun being here and meeting all of you who I'm interacting with, making friends on here. That's so fun. So thank you so much, you guys. 2025 was a great year, but I know 2026 is going to be even better. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.